Hello, welcome to a Tweedy Pubs video. I'm in the leafy streets of Hampstead and I thought I would do a whistle-stop tour of the pubs of aforementioned London suburbs. So right behind me I have pub number one, the Flask. Sorry, you can probably hear the air conditioning unit just over there, but cheers. Yeah, this isn't a effect of distorted perspective. I'm in fact drinking a half pint there. The Flask Tavern. This pub there has been a pub on this site of this name on and off since at least 1700. The current building dates to the 1870s, and from around 1900 onwards it has been a Young's pub, which it still is today. So this is a pint of one of Young's beers. I'm not the world's biggest fan of Young's beer, if I'm brutally honest, but partly the reason for having a half. The pub is quite interesting. The name, of course, relates to the time when Hampstead was a destination for people to come and take the waters. One of the springs on Hampstead Heath was considered to have rich mineral properties, a rival to Tunbridge Wells. The business that was bottling or flasking, I suppose you could say, the water and selling it on was based here at the Flask Tavern. There are, or were, several pubs of this name, pubs and or other institutions. Hampstead alone had two Flasks. This was for a long time known as the Lower Flask, and there was another Flask, I believe closer to the Heath, known as the Upper Flask. And then on the other side, over in Highgate, still standing today, is another pub called the Flask for similar reasons. It's a while since I was last here, but I have to admit the interior is actually slightly more impressive than I remember it. Perhaps I'd never given this pub a decent chance in the past. The has that rather impressive mahogany and etched glass partition, which is seemingly somewhat original. On one side there are these having to read this, chromolithographs by Jan van Beers, the Dutch artist. Of particular note on the exterior are these patera, I believe the plural was paterae, I don't know if I can point accurately. They're these sort of architectural motifs that recreate a Roman dish. They're sort of just lined up with each of the pilasters here, and these rather handsome, I think, glazed ceramic tiles. The reason I've taken this brief detour, try and get the roadworks out of shot there if I can, is to visit the Chalybeate well. Notice it's not pronounced Chalybeate, it's Chalybeate. And this is where the... Oh, I do have some roadwork ephemera in shot, never mind, it's unavoidable. This is where the connection with Tunbridge Wells comes back again, because as mentioned earlier, the waters of Hampstead were compared favourably to the waters at Tunbridge Wells, well known for their hangover curing properties. And that's also a chalybeate spring, which effectively just means it's iron rich. I saw this recently in one of tour guide Jules's videos, and he came to Hampstead. This is Cannon Lane, and interestingly, the bollards here are reproductions of cannons. I think that's supposed to be a cannonball on the top and everything. Somewhere the other side of all those cars is the Old White Bear. Slight sort of apprehension about coming to this pub because I was last here 15 years ago. It was very much still a pubby pub back then. I think it almost certainly closed down for a while altogether, so it's great that it's open in any form. I suspect it has almost certainly gone down a bit of the gastro route now, but let's take a look and see what it's like. Background noise everywhere in Hampstead. I have to say, I think the Old White Bear, for by 2023 standards, turned out slightly better than I expected. There was very promising looking beer on the bar there. Timothy Taylor's Bolt Cutter. You don't see that very often. Alas, not quite available yet. But that's a very good sign. I saw something saying 10% discount for camera members. All very positive signs. The interior, yes, the paint job is that sort of whatever that kind of murky blue Farrow and Ball paint is, but that just seems to be inevitable now. show me a sort of recently refurbished pub that doesn't have that, so you can't get away with it. But I mean, I was probably only nostalgic for the old one because it had what would have been considered a horrible looking paint job in the 1980s, and then I was there in the 2000s and it was 20 years old and looked sort of somehow nostalgic. Anywho, next pub. Smaller side. You can see, is that a tributary of the River Fleet down there? Can you see the water down the bottom? I can't, I don't know if the camera can pick it up. Next up, the Duke of Hamilton. Cheers. I've never noticed this garden before. This is rather nice. It's got a massive tarp over the back and keep the rain off. It's really rather pretty. I used to briefly lived in Hampstead many years ago, 20 something years ago. I came in here once or twice, and this was at that time very much a sort of old-fashioned pubby pub. We're talking sort of early 2000s here, with old sticky carpet and I mean, again, probably like the old White Bear, it was sort of 1980s style decor that I found wonderfully nostalgic, and of course now it's been modernised, but it's not without its charm. Still, you know, the paint job inside is not to my personal taste, but this space is actually very nice, and there's that nice terrace out the front. It was always filled with thesps. Back in the day with lovies. This was a place where you could come and sit and have a quiet pint of an afternoon, and overhear a couple of out of work actors complaining about RADA or whatever it is out of work actors complain about. As I say, it's kind of inevitable in Hampstead that they're all going to go a bit the way of the gastro, but you know, here I am just enjoying a pint and not having to order a side of truffle arancini to legitimise having a drink in a pub, so you know, all is not lost. I'd say what is probably the best until last, at least the most famous, and probably any of you familiar with London pubs already know where I'm heading next, are these very atmospheric steps. The old gas lantern, I'm not sure if that's still running on gas. Looks like it's been replaced with electric. There are still some in London running on gas, down in Westminster, perhaps not up here in Hampstead. I am of course bound for the Hollybush. What a gem of a pub. Now, if we're going to be absolutely strict about this isn't a particularly old pub. The building dates back to the 1790s, but the pub is only from 1928, so previously just a private residence up until about 100 years ago, and then was converted into a pub. But what a fine, handsome corner pub that makes. Cheers. It is today mostly turned over to sort of restaurant use. As you can see, there's sort of pre-laid tables with white tablecloths and so on, but still possible to come and just have a beer. There's a bit of bar seating area near the front, and a little bit of outside space as well. Yeah, so this is Hampstead. There are no sort of 100% pubby pubs anymore, but if you can look past the Farrow and Ball paint, there's still some charm. Well, that's the lot for today. Hampstead Pubs. There are of course many more pubs in Hampstead one could visit. I've just sort of focused on the top, not too far from the station. They're all within 5 or so minutes walk of Hampstead Station, and you know, I think probably the most interesting of the lot, but I'm sure you'll disagree. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.